Shits and Giggles, embarrassing stories and personal growth. Hello and welcome to another episode of Shits and Giggles, the show where we relive our most embarrassing and maybe traumatizing moments, but for the good of everybody else. Today, my guest is Justin. This is my second Justin, actually, back-to-back Justins. And Justin is a really lovely IBD advocate from across the very large pond. Justin is speaking to us from the future right now, if you're in America like I am. Welcome, Justin. How are you?
Well. I'm doing really well. The future is going amazing here. Yeah, the sun has risen actually. Just heads up, just in case you want to place a bet and say, what's going to be in the future. I'm telling you that the sun is going to be rising tomorrow. So
Good. Right now, you never know. So I appreciate the hot tip.
yeah. With this pandemic, you don't know what's going on, right?
So Justin, tell us a little bit about you. What's your IBD story?
So I'll condense it because I've spoken hours and hours and hours on this. I got many podcasts, but to keep it short and succinct, I was diagnosed when I was 2 years old with Crohn's disease. In and out of hospital my whole childhood. Suffered with confidence issues. Couldn't make a friend. Couldn't talk to strangers. Couldn't date anyone as well. I was just so nervous and really affected my confidence. So I grew up as just a real fragile boy who was in and out of hospital quite a lot, and dealing with increasing strength of the medications that the hospital system released. And then as the years went by, the operations got worse and worse and worse. It went from little fistulas to cutting. I used to get like big knots in my intestines and things like that. So I have a lot of those operations till when I was 21, 20, and I had a big had one of the largest operations that I've had to this date, which is I had my ileostomy. And that was because I was really sick and really just really stressed, my life. And I went through a big breakup, and it just really impacted me that way. So yeah, that's in a nutshell, And so I'm 31 now, going on 32. So it'll be I got my bag when I was 20, so it'd be like 11 to 12 years since I've had this bag, and there's only been 30 seconds in my life when I didn't like having the bag, and that was straight after the operation. I looked down, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" And just changed it and stuff. But then afterwards, I'm like, you know what? I got it. I might as well love it, because it's always been my motto. Like, just accept it. The more when you accept it, life becomes easier. But when you resist it and you resist your situation and things like that, that's when stress comes in and being upset.
So you've had a hell of a journey, we'll say, right? Like that's a long time. And it sounds like, everything you just like your highlights of, being young and all the struggles you had. It sounds like up until you turned into this lovely, confident man that you are now. And I know enough about you to know that you are confident. There's probably been some snafus along the way, right? There's probably been a couple things that maybe didn't go the way you want them to, maybe some embarrassing stories, maybe one you would like to share with us today.
Yeah, well, look, every time I've had an incident with my bag, it's had to do when I was getting a bit frisky and either just going out and having fun, And
Why am
so,
I not surprised that's where this was going to go? I knew it.
shit happens, right?
It does.
Yeah, straight away, straight into it, yeah, look, I sometimes get caught up in the moment, and it's just, when you're there and you got like the bodily fluids and
Mhm.
the skin on skin and you know, at the moment, and
I'm
then it's
nervous. I'm nervous about what's gonna happen coming out of your mouth next. I'm nervous.
yeah, and then you just feel like a bit more than skin on skin, then you feel a bit of moisture, and then you feel like a bit of mushiness, and you're like, this is not right. But obviously keep going anyway. You mean you know, you can't stop the motion of the ocean. That's that's a given
So
fact.
so what happened? Did your bag open? Did it come off?
No, it just started leaking. I always get like the leaks, you know.
Got
So
it.
it's all leaking like yeah, like I don't know. What was it like? I just no, I don't know. I got no analogy, so it just started leaking, you know.
So what did your partner at the time say?
She was no, she was every girl I've been with has been so compassionate and loving about it. And she was totally fine with it. She goes, "Oh, it's all right. Shit happens, you know." Literally. So we just went in the shower and washed it off. So
Listen, I have to say, this is like the best lead up for a terribly embarrassing story that just turned into like, yeah, but it was fine.
yeah,
Like, it's
yeah,
almost like the best version of a letdown I've ever gotten because I'm so thrilled that it wasn't horrendously awful for you, but also like I kind of want the juicy, super embarrassing story.
I know. Like, you know, for other people, it may be embarrassing, it may be juicy, you know, but for me, it's normal. Like, I think I've just gotten used to it, you know. Like, I went out clubbing with my friends when I first had my bag. I didn't realize it's not a good idea to have like two big Macca's meals and then go out clubbing. I didn't know that my bag would fill up and you know and have a leak. And and it happened when we were clubbing, and it was like I had poo, like you know, on the side of my shirt, and my friends were like, "Dude, like you got shit on yourself," you know. And I was like, "Oh, I don't know what to do." And then so it just emptied out, but like there was a big hole in my bag, you know, so it was just on the side. So it's about 2 a.m. At night, and this is the first time I've gone clubbing since I've had, you know, my bag. So we went to all the different convenience stores looking for like some kind of tape. So we found like one store and it had like duct tape, like gaffer tape, you know. So like they started gaffer taping like it around my skin, and I'm like, this is so bad. And it lasted, and yeah, that was pretty bad.
But it did not come off in a lovely way, I'm assuming. Probably was awful, right?
No, just you know, grinding up on someone, and you know, she's like, "What is that?" I'm like, what is yours? Not me, it's you. This is you. I'm gonna go now. Bye." Yeah, yeah. So that would have to be one of the most embarrassing because I could just still smell it. You know, I could still smell it, but my friends were just so they were just so compassionate and kind towards me when it came to my bag. So they just like were very pragmatic. And then okay, let's we still want to go clubbing. Like, be
Can't go home, right?
come on, guys, you got to sort your shit out. Yeah,
So I can't help but pull a couple like nuggets out of both of those stories. And one of them was you said your friends are really, really compassionate. And also that the girl that you were with was also equally as compassionate, which says to me, you make an effort to surround yourself with compassionate people, which
yeah,
seems
yeah.
like a given, but I don't think that as humans we necessarily start there. We're like, oh, I met this person, they're kind of cool, hope they're compassionate. It's
Mm,
never, it's not in the forefront, I think, a lot of times. And the reason why I wanted to point that out is because the second point, which was that if you have confidence, but also just can let things roll off, these situations are not nearly as detrimental like as they can be. And so if you surround yourself with good people and you also just can laugh at yourself and the world that we're in sometimes, you can survive this stuff, you know?
mm, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got one right here. This is right there.
Hello.
You're on camera.
Am I on
Yeah,
camera?
we're gonna see you.
Oh my god.
Do you want to say a few words and talk about being compassionate?
Uh,
Well, you have to come over here so people can see you.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome to our show.
You gotta come closer so people can see you. So what's it like? You know, as you know, for me, I understand what it's like, you know, with a bag, but what's it like as a partner having to deal with being compassionate in those situations where, you know, you're very compassionate as you are, you know?
I don't know. I guess I didn't have an issue with that. I thought it was just something that's normal, something that you're dealing with.
Well, let me ask you this, if I may. If there's ever been any unfortunate circumstances related to your bag between the two of you, I know, like, so when I had my bag, weird shit happened sometimes, especially when you didn't want it to for the most part. And you either, like, you almost have two choices. You can either just pretend like it didn't happen and move on and hope that your partner is compassionate and does the same thing, or you can have a meltdown and talk about how terrible it was and feel awful inside, right? There's almost no in between in my world. And when that happened to me, I never asked my partner how he felt, because I was too embarrassed to ask him, like, what it was like on the other side of that. So if anything has ever happened between you two and you're comfortable talking about it, as a partner, like, how do you feel in those moments?
Well, there was like one time when you were at McDonald's and they didn't let you. Oh no, was it? It was you're trying to find the loo and they wouldn't actually let you go to it for medical, even for medical reasons. And then you had a leak, and then you came to my place and then we just took the jumper off and took the shirt off and washed it straight away. I don't think I just never really thought of it as a big issue. It just seemed, it's not something that I really thought about. I was just like, all right, we just need to wash it and that's it, and then we're done with it.
See, that alone is a lovely lesson for anybody at home afraid of what their partner will think or feel, or what future partners might think or feel, that it's not a big deal, right? Like, you just move on. You do what the next step is. And if the next step is, like, go home and wash your clothes, you just do the next thing that anybody else would do.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's times where we'll be talking and then I'll just start farting, like and then I would say, "See, my truth detector's going off." They can smell shit because about.
Especially when we're actually talking about serious things.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. So I think it's really important. Like, you know, the more normalized you see it, the more normalized your partner's going to see it. You know, and you know, Liz hasn't seen or been with anyone who's had a bag. You know, and I'm really afraid that when I get my reversal, that she's going to leave me for someone who has a bag. You know. It's a big fear of mine. I'm going to be a bagless freak and then she's going to leave me.
I think that's maybe a first, and I'm not surprised that you are the first person that I've ever heard say that. There's just something that's not surprising at all to me that came out of your mouth.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it was nice meeting you.
You too. Thanks.
Get back to work.
I think that just goes to show, though, is in those situations, right? The most embarrassing situations that we find ourselves in, whether it's alone, in public, during intimate time, like whatever it is, what you kind of project is what gets picked up, I think. So, you know, if you are embarrassed, or you melt down, or you're panicking, or all of those things, I think people pick that up. And if you just treat it like, well, that was awful, that's shitty, literally, and but here's what I got to do to fix it, I think people tend to, like, follow your lead and will do what you do, especially if they're people who care about you, you know, like people, your loved ones, your friends, your family. Most people are not going to melt down right back in front of you. You know, they'll at least save it to when they're home or something like that.
Yeah. Well, there's a saying that I learned from a mentor of mine many years ago. He said, people would take their cues from you of how to treat you. So if you're gonna be if you think you're not good and not cool, people are gonna take that cue from you and treat you like that. And if you think you're, say, not smart or like you're awkward, people will treat you like awkward because that's your view. So if you transform the view of your ostomy or your condition, right, and you view it in the most positive light, and you go, people respect me and love me because of my ostomy and things like that, then they will respond and react to you like that, you know. So it really is like how your internal world controls how the external world responds and reacts to you, you know. So like always looking at the silver lining or the brown lining, as we said before, um, is important because at the end of the day, it is what it is, and it is what it isn't.
Right.
Now, you can't change the fact that you shat yourself. You really can't. Like it happens.
I have tried many times to wish that it didn't happen unsuccessfully. Always, never undid history.
No, never done it. And it's kind of like ripping up the band-aid. Like, you know, you're just gonna be like, hey, look, I shat myself. Like, or like, I just shat the bed. I'm sorry. Like, the longer you wait to tell someone that's happened, then the more difficult it is for you to, yes, it's just such the ruminating thoughts. So you might as well just get out, be transparent, open, honest. Like, hey, guys, look, you just shat my underwear, whatever. Like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go change it. Like, being pragmatic is a very important thing. Being pragmatic and being a real adult about things and not being childish. So childish would be like to just over exaggerate. Yeah, I totally understand. Like there's a time and place for that. But when there's a medical emergency, like if you had something like that, it's important just to go, yeah, cool. Let me just deal with it. Let me deal with the reality, because the most important thing with our condition is we have to deal with reality. We can't just get stuck into the stories of the pity, you know, because it doesn't help us. It doesn't make it help us move forward. It doesn't help anyone. So it's like developing that pragmaticness and that nonchalantness, like, and that humor, being like toilet humor, like, yeah, cool. I just, you know, it's fine, and always having a backup. So for me, I find I always have a backup plan. If I'm always out, I make sure I have a spare change of clothes with me and a bat and a few spare bags and a towel. So when something happens, and I say when because it does happen, I can just deal with it. Whereas if I'm out in the city and I don't have my bags and I don't have a change of clothes and something happens, it takes me almost an hour to get home. Now that's a really awkward situation um, when I could just have it in my bag and just carry this little bag with me, and you know, it is what it is. Like, so that's all I have to say. I think that.
Well, I feel like what you're saying here is let's say a product of sort of like a lifetime of living with this, you know. So when you can look at it from these eyes, from this perspective of it happened, let's deal with it and let's move on, or you know, wow, that was a really big bummer, but I'm prepared, so it'll be okay. I think all of those, I think a lot of people get there eventually. But I also think there are a lot of people who are new to this, or maybe new to surgery, or new to ostomies, new to their J pouches, new to whatever. And they can't quite get to that like calm, rational, let's deal with this and then move on. And so I would just want to say, like, if you're that person and the thought of shitting yourself or having a leak during sex or any of the things that you described tonight is like mortifying and you can't fathom it, I would encourage you to honestly fake it. Because like we said, the vibe that you give off to people around you, they soak up. And so if you can't, like, if you're panicking on the inside, but on the outside, you're like, let's business through this, I think that is the best way to handle it, while asking for help if you need it. Because otherwise, a meltdown over shitting yourself in public, at home, or whatever, it doesn't deal with it. It just makes you feel worse. And you're still sitting in your own shit, probably, you know?
Yeah.
So I think the goal is to get to the like, the pragmatic approach. But if you're not there yet, it's a little bit of fake it till you make it. It's also just have a go bag ready, which is like what you just mentioned, have all your stuff packed. I mean, I definitely found myself in situations where I did not have a go bag packed. I was out in public, my ostomy leaked, all the, I'm not even going to call them horror stories, right? All the things that I think other people would think are horror stories, where you just get really creative. You become like a MacGyver and you figure it out when you can't deal with it. Like, you find solutions when there are none, because there's no other option.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And like, if you just, say, if you're trying to figure it out, it's a good place to fake it, or like, open your bag, like do in a safe space at home by yourself. And like, because the common things when leaks happen for me is either like I'm sleeping and I sleep on my tummy and then have a leak, or if I'm laying on my stomach like I am now.
It is adorable that you said a tummy, by the way. It's cute.
I thought that's a technical name for it, but yeah. No, thank you. And like, and then also like during sex as well. That's another time, and just being out in public, and so those are the main situations. And what I would say to someone who's like, just had an operation or who's been dealing with it, really paint the worst case scenario. Like, really paint it. Like, the whole bed is full of shit, or like your partner's covered in shit, right? Or like the shit, there's a poo trail, and just be like, just get yourself mentally to a stage where you can be like, I can deal with that. I can deal with it. It's fine. It's not going to be a bad deal. It's not going to be a bad thing. And when you can deal with the worst case scenario in your head and be okay with it, when it happens, then it's fine. Because you're not dead. You're not. No one's died at all, and nothing's.
Nothing's unfixable. I do what you're talking about a lot when I'm nervous or scared about something big or small things. I'll kind of say like, well, what if I shit the bed? And then I'll say, and then what? And then I'll say, well, then I'm embarrassed. Okay, and then what? And I'll end then what until I get to the point where I'm like, and I'm fine. At the end of it, you're always fine. And sometimes it might feel like, okay, I shit the bed during sex, and then what? I was really embarrassed, and then my partner was grossed out, and then they stopped being my partner, and then you dated somebody better. Like, it always gets to the point where you're fine at the end of it. Like, no matter what, you didn't die from the embarrassment, and maybe you got something better out of it in the end anyway.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah. Also worth noting, you mentioned the when it happens, not if it happens. And I think it's important, especially for ostomates who may be watching this, to think about the when, not the if, and to learn how to not freak out about that. Because I had an ostomy for 16 months, and I had everything go wrong that could go wrong in all the times I didn't want them to go wrong, in public, during sex, at work, in my sleep, everywhere. And again, I am still alive, speaking to you from the current time, did not die from embarrassment. But it's important, because it's probably going to happen to you, but you're going to be okay. Like, you're going to make it through it. And I think that, I don't know that that's talked about enough, right? It's always like, well, if I have a leak, this is what I do, as opposed to like, when it happens, because that just feels like wishful thinking to me. Like, it's not realistic.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's a conversation that you need to have with the people around you, bosses. You go to bosses. Hey, this is what my conditions like. I'm probably going to shit myself, and I probably have to leave last minute and go change myself. When they know that.
I mean, I think if you can tell your boss, I'm probably going to shit myself, you are killing it in the confidence department. I don't know if I could go that far. Well, right now I am my own boss, so yes, I could do that to me. But in the past, I don't know if I could have done that. But I mean, that feels like work goals. If you could tell your boss, I'm probably going to shit myself, then I think you've made it. I think you've like hit the IBD pay dirt. You did it.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to having good support network. Yeah, that's really, as a patient, someone suffering with a condition like ours, having that support network is very critical. Mental and, like, say, physical support network. So mental support network where you can just, like, have the people around you be compassionate towards what you're going through, not fix you, but just really empathize and really get your experience and really get what you're feeling. Not necessarily every boss is going to feel like that, but especially choosing partners and people like that is something that's very important. Because at the end of the day, we're looking for empathy in our life. That's one of the biggest things in when we're growing up. Our parents look after us, and then we have a boo boo, and then they nurture us, and they go, "It's okay, don't worry, it's fine." They give us that compassion, right? They don't say, "Hey, look, just get over it." It's not that big of a deal. Get over it. So having that compassion and having the people around you that go, wow, it's a big deal, is important. So then we look for that in our friends, right? We grow up and we look for friends who really empathize with where we're at in life. And they go, okay, I understand what you're feeling. I understand. And we're friends with those people. We're not friends with people who say, get the fuck over it. We don't have friends like
Well,
that.
and if you are friends with those people, like, maybe reconsider those friendships a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Because at the end of the day, we all know what to do. We're smart human beings. But we crave that intimacy, we crave that connection, that support. And then we have partners, right? And then we have, you start dating, and then that's a critical element, is you're looking for that support as well. And that support where your partner can feel empathy towards you. And empathy, not just as in, like, oh, I know what you're feeling, but really they put themselves in your shoes and they can feel that experience and feel what it's like, what you're going through. And that's really important, because if you can't get that from your partner and you can't have those conversations with your partner, then either, like, you view your partner in a way where they will just walk away because they don't have that level of empathy for you, or you just are making a assumption about who they are, because it's really important, that you have that partner or those people around you. They go, yeah, I understand what you're going through, and giving you that nurturing, because that's ultimately what we're craving. Like, and to harden up is not a good way of going about it, because it just creates distress everywhere.
Damn, Justin, that's deep. I also think honestly, that's a perfect place for us to wrap up this episode, because I agree. This is ideally who you want to the people you want in your life. It may take some time to get there, and you might have to go through a couple people on the way there to figure out who your people are. But yeah, empathy is sort of the key to really strong relationships. And that's what I agree. As humans, we crave that in our lives. So don't settle for people who are upset if you shit the bed, I think, is really how we could end this,
Yeah, exactly. If they don't have that patience for you, then they're not the right people for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Justin, where can we find you online if we want to learn more about your life?
So Instagram is where I'm pretty active. So you can go to @thriving.with.crohn's. You can find me there, and I've got a website and stuff, but I don't know. So I think it's like thriving-with-crohn's.com.
You don't know your own website?
No, it's on the Instagram. If you look at Instagram, there's a link there.
As someone who builds websites for a life, this is horrifying.
Yeah, I'm a web developer, so I should know what it is. Oh, you have it here? What is it? Who's him, huh? Oh, yes, that is it. No, the website. Yeah, I think it's like www.thriving-with-crohn's.com.
Okay. Well, we'll put that in the show notes somewhere for everybody else.
Yeah, it's somewhere. It's something I've changed it a few times. It was like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, thank you for coming on Shits and Giggles, Justin, and thank you for introducing us to your lovely lady and sharing a little bit of your life and your philosophies. I think all of it's really important, and I don't know. I think you're great. You're one of my favorite people I've met probably this year, so I'm really glad that we got to have a moment on the show together.
Thank you so much for your time. It was good to have some shits and giggles, but not.
Well, you might have had some shits in your bag, but I did not currently have any shits.
I am shitting as we speak.
Well, on that note, thank you for listening, everybody. Thanks to Gali Health for letting us do this again, and we'll see everybody next time.